What's up, everyone? Mark with Kardavox Academy here, and today I'm going to do a vocal analysis of Psychoframe No Revives, or No Revives. How do you say it? I don't know it. I don't. So here's the thing. Yesterday or the day before, one of my students, I'm a full-time harsh vocal coach. I teach people how to do things like that safely and efficiently. That's my full-time job. And one of my students was like, yo, I caught Nik Nocturnal's last live or video, and he talked about this band Psychoframe, and you should check it out. And that's all I know. That's like legitimately all I know. I don't know what they sound like. I don't know what they look like. I don't know where they're from. And first time reactions are kind of rare on this channel because, this is my job. I hear a lot of metal. So I'm kind of excited. It's been a long time since I went in absolutely 100% blind. So here we go, I guess. Yeah, here we go. I push play. Okay, let's talk there. Let's start there. This makes sense. This makes sense as to why my student was like, you gotta check this out, because there's a lot of really cool stuff here. So the first thing that I'm hearing, the first thing that I really want to talk about is that snare, that also like pong 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 snare. It's funny. People used to make fun of the open snare all the time in metal, and now I feel like I hear it more and more. But I'm not a drummer, so I don't know. But anyways, so let's go ahead and talk about this, right? So one of the main things that I just want to talk about the mids. We'll talk about that like guttural, we'll talk about that in a second. But the main thing I want to talk about is the mids, right? And so what I'm hearing here is a very strong, very well connected deathcore mid. Now, why am I calling it a deathcore mid? Why don't I just call it a metal mid, or a black metal mid, or a death metal mid? Why is it a deathcore mid? Couple reasons for this. Number one, I don't like to say that one vocal is specific to a certain genre. Like, for example, I use a lot of deathcore vocal techniques in a band that is not deathcore at all. Band's called Kardavox. It's my main right now my only musical project, with my homies spread out all across the world. But I use a lot of deathcore technique in a band that is not deathcore at all, not even slightly. Right. And so I don't want you to think that this is how deathcore vocals have to be, but it is also true that there is a trend, right? So what we have is this really compressed, really tight, really compressed mid, right? Now, at this point, it's a little hard to say like, oh, this is fully 100% fry, or oh, this is fully like a arytenoid and epiglottis, right? Because the way that these vocals are layered and mixed, the two can sound very, very similar, right? If you hear them raw, they sound very different, but when they're processed like this, they can sound very similar. But the reason I'm calling it a deathcore mid is not necessarily from that intense engagement, that tight engagement, which that is part of it, but it's the delivery of the vocals, right? So like if I take a vocal like this, right, very simple, and I pull the tongue back and I pull the jaw back and I kind of like chew on it, sounds more slammy, right? Like that's kind of slammy. This, I'm going to listen to it again. This is, again, blind. So this has a little bit more of a forward, right? The tongue not so far back. The tongue probably disconnected from the top of the mouth as well. So this gives us like this, and that's a sound. There's a little less true chord on his onsets, but that's a sound that often gets associated with a lot of deathcore. So let's keep going. There are other vocals to talk about as well, but that's just the first thing I wanted to point out. If you want to know like some of the stylistic markers of this genre's vocals that are not based on how the distortion is generated, but more how it is delivered and resonates, that's the thing you can keep an ear out for. Let's keep going. I can tell something crazy is going to happen. So we're starting here. Really cool interplay between these two vocalists. Unless it's the same guy just taking off and putting on a hat real fast. I don't think so. Really cool interplay between these vocalists. I just want to point out that section had a lot of what I was talking about. This. It's almost like you're doing like Fred Durst, right? Or like a Zach De La Rocha, right? You take like that delivery. Hey, some of those that burn crosses are the same that hold office, right? Right, that sort of thing. It translates well. It doesn't sound like Rage Against the Machine, but you know what I'm saying? That is true though. Some of those that hold office, well, the ones that burn crosses. Anyway, whoo! A little spicy. I want to talk about Homie's highs. It's interesting because these highs have a lot of that chunk, that we associate with, like, I don't know, why can't I speak English? False chord highs, right? So we have this, right? It's got a lot of that like false chord vibe. Now we call those false chord highs. I don't love that term. Because for me, when I create that sound, and again, this is somewhat anecdotal, right? I'm getting a lot of distortion from the folds in the back of the mouth coming together, right? Right? And that sounds like what we have here with a really wide articulation. They saw me party. See the mouth going wide. Me, psycho frame no revives. Versus psycho frame no revives. Tall, wide, tall. Right? We're gonna talk about those stinky gutturals soon, but I really like I'm really enjoying, and those start stops. Oh, that's sick. So far pretty cool. Let's go ahead and pause there because that sounds like it's gonna get nuts. You know, when I'm gonna be real, when I first heard that open snare, I did not like it. I was like, ugh, why did they do that? But now I'm kind of vibing with it. Now I kind of dig it. Now I'm like, okay, actually, it's kind of drawing me in. So I think my opinion is changing about that open snare. Anyways, doesn't matter. So let's go ahead. I was hoping they would do it again, like really forefront, but I didn't hear it, and that's okay. So let's talk about that really low. Really like, you know, those types of vocals, right? It's interesting. I recorded earlier today an Infinite Annihilator video. I don't remember what it was. It's only an hour ago. Why can't I remember it? But a lot of times when we're creating those tones, we need a couple of things. Number one, we need kind of a lot of things. Number one, we need to be holding a lot of air back, right? One of the reasons a lot of my students who have trouble doing lows because they are trying to apply a false chord technique to the sound of this like really low, really like, you know, vocal, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the reason for this is that if I take a false chord vocal, which is very loose, very open, very flappy, we're talking foundational false chord, baseline false chord. If I take that and it doesn't sound bad necessarily. It's just not that, right? So what we're getting, part of the reason we're getting this like really echoey tone is because the tissues are pushing together really hard. They're pushing together fairly hard, right? And they're rattling frequently. The control on this guy is nuts, by the way. The control of this that he has going is really, really powerful. And he's managing to get a lot of openness while still maintaining the technique. A lot of times you do this with a closed kind of narrow mouth shape, but he's holding the front narrow while keeping the back open. And that's pretty cool. That's a tough thing to do, especially for new. I mean, once you learn it, it's not hard, but it's tough to often get those, you know, movements isolated from each other and yet cooperating. And the second thing you're going to need is as little vocal cord engagement as possible. As little, because the moment tone goes in there, it ruins everything. And when I say tone, I should say pitch from your true chords. So if I take this, actually that was an accident, but it's a really good example, right? So that was totally a mistake, but I'm going to keep it in because that perfectly illustrates the point, right? The moment the voice comes in, it kills it, right? So one of the tricks is start doing this slow, start doing it slow, low, and breathy. Hey everybody, my name is Mark. And then lean into it over time. Let's keep going. Okay, so they totally, I was like, oh, here comes the big nasty breakdown. Here comes the big nasty breakdown. And it didn't. And I was like a little surprised. And maybe a little like, oh, that's kind of what I was hoping for. But now it sounds like it's happening later. You saw me like prep for it. I was like, oh, nope. But it sounds like it's coming up here. So I want to talk to you a little bit. How much time do we have? About an hour, about a minute, a little less. Okay, yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about these high vocals again, right? Because surprisingly, well, not surprisingly to me, because that's all I do all day is give vocal lessons, right? But surprisingly, a lot of these high vocals can be very tough for people to bridge, right? And part of the reason for that is because we have to go through a kind of intense vocal tract shape change in order to make these highs really happen, to make them turn into like high vocals. And specifically these chunkier like those types of sounds, right? It requires a fairly tricky vocal tract shape change in order to make that happen, right? So when we are taking, again, there are multiple ways to do this. This is just the way I'm talking about now because false chord bass is like my thing. That's like my bread and butter. But if I take this false chord mid, hey, blow, hey, which we're not really hearing in this song at all, but if I take that, hey, my vocal tract is roughly the same as when I speak. Hey, 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 hi everybody, my name is Mark, and I like pizza. Right, maybe I'll pucker the lips, maybe I'll move my tongue forward, but it's really based on the way that I speak. And if I try to do that and make it high by just like sort of raising the pitch the same way I would raise the pitch of my voice, you know, it would be, that's what a lot of people get. They get that sound, right? And a lot of people don't want that sound. It can sound kind of cool as a background layer in a lot of black metal vocals, but it's not something that a lot of people are really going to enjoy. And it's really hard to make that sound without it feeling uncomfortable and kind of a tingly on the vocal cords. So what we have to do is we have to learn how to change that vocal tract shape specifically. And there are different things that we can do to make that happen, right? One, believe it or not, is cleaning up your vocal break, right? Now my acid reflux is killing me today. I'm filming all the videos for this month in one day. So if you see me say that in another video and you're like, hey, you said that 3 videos ago, it was actually only like an hour ago. But if we can clean up our vocal break, right, which is a clean singing technique, it's going to be easier for us to make the vocal tract shape movement it's going to be easier for us to change the vocal tract shape in a way that is necessary for high vocals to exist. What a mouthful. Even though we're not going to use our vocal folds. So if I can go like, let's try it. Let's see. Cleaning up the vocal tract or the vocal break is not something I spend a whole lot of time on because it's not really useful to the way that I do vocals. So I'll say I'm kind of okay at it, right? I'm kind of okay. But if I go like, yeah, see, there was trying. There it was. right? If you really want to clean up your vocal break, you got to talk to our clean coach, Verona. She does all the clean singing lessons. She's got a lot of videos on the channel too. That's one thing that you can do to help. I want to get back to the song, so I'll only talk about one more. Another one is moving between your chest voice and like a twangy sort of like head voice or head mix, whatever you want to call it. So like this. See how the vocal break was absent in that? Now, I don't want to create this idea that the vocal break is bad for vocals. Vocal break can be really good for vocals. It can be a huge tool. It can be helpful with fry. It can be helpful with some pitch false chord screams. But specifically for this movement of, it's very useful to be able to do those things. So sometimes instead of working on a high vocal, working on those things and then applying your distortion to those movements can be very helpful. It's complex, and it's usually something that me and the student really have to focus on. So if you're like, wow, that sounds like a lot, I wish I knew more, it could be its own video. Let's keep going. What an ending. Wow. I love that. His was chunkier. We definitely had some EQ giving us those bright, crispy, tingly high sections. But if you want to do stuff like that and you can create these compressed, distorted vocals, think about E, actually more like that. E with your lips puckered. E, you can curl your tongue a little bit too. E, I'm thinking too much. You can create some of those cool tones. Anyway, yeah, psycho frame. I keep wanting to say psycho pass because of the anime Psycho Pass, which was really cool. I like that a lot. I'm not like a huge anime fan, but the anime that I really like. Psycho Pass was pretty good. I thought so anyway. But anyways, yeah, cool introduction. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed. Interested to hear more from them. A lot of really cool deathcore fundamentals. And when I say fundamental, I don't mean like fundamental vocal technique. What I mean is like, these are the things that a lot of people think about when they think deathcore vocals, right? Boom, here you go. So beyond that, good job to my homies in Psycho Frame. Keep the good work. Many thanks, much love. I'm out.